Jacinth is a transparent, fiery orange gem, usually worth 1 to 5,000 gold pieces to most merchants who know their gems on the world of Toril. Many people know that dragons are a lot more variable than they appear in storybooks, and it's mainly the efforts of sages and historians to correct the misconception that all red dragons act this way or all black dragons live in these sorts of places and so on. Many folks accuse sages of just inventing more and more dragons because the books and lectures about the species do tend to earn better coin from the public. I've had some doubts myself until I went travelling to the great desert of purple dust and actually ran into the territory of one of the most rare dragons you can name on the whole planet. As is often the case, I had no idea I was about to die when I met the dragon. I was at death's door already, out of water, food, my pack animals dying or dead, no hope of rescue. I could maybe scrape a few more days out of my provisions by literally scraping the containers with my knife. I was just staggering, leading my camel, sucking in air that felt like it was wafting out of the door of an open oven, when something other than gritty purple sand met my footstep. I heard and felt the distinct sound of my boot breaking a dried twig, and I looked up and around suddenly. It was an oasis, an actual pool of water, surrounded by palm trees and such, with a large rock in the middle of that pond that was on fire, or it seemed to be. It was actually the light of the sun reflecting off this spectacularly brilliant dragon. My natural instinct was to lower my eyes and clap my hand over my face to soothe my eyes, which was probably what saved me, as the dragon may have seen this as a sign of instant respect. Honestly, if the dragon notices you, dropping into an instant posture of supplication is never a bad idea. Even the very best, most noble and benevolent dragon naturally enjoys being praised, worshipped, and shown the utmost respect. It could be that the dragon was just bored, though. They'd seen me coming from miles away, and this whole oasis was nothing more but illusionary magic. I knew it at the time, but I appreciated that it was actually cool and shaded thanks to the magic, despite there being no real plants or water. All of my attention, of course, was focused on the dragon, who was staring at me like I was some unique little morsel, and it was deciding on whether to eat me right away or take the time and prepare me into a proper fancy meal. Then the dragon started talking, and honestly, it's a bit fuzzy what happened next thanks to the little-known hypnotic powers of the Jacinth dragon. The rarest of the already elusive gem dragons, the Jacinth dragons are a bit smaller than their typical metallic or chromatic dragon cousins, but they live a very long time and keep growing over the decades. So while they may start out as 2-foot-long wormlings, they can become enormous 73-foot-long great worms. They are quite an ancient offshoot of dragonkind, along with the jade and the pearl dragons. Some scholars speculate that gem dragons did not branch off from either metallic or chromatic dragons' bloodlines, but all the way back to the proto-dragons. They're also unable to shape change like the metallic dragons, yet they are often so well versed in both arcane and divine magic that their innate abilities hardly matter. They still do have some, though. First, they can survive in total solitude without water or food for weeks at a time. They would be totally unknown if it were not for their curiosity about creatures that they found wandering around their deserts. They keep their distance at all times anyway. Like most gem dragons, they prefer to hang back and use spells and their breath weapon to deal death. At close range, their blinding and hypnotic scales do most of the work for them, but they can tear a person apart with their claws and fangs just like any other true dragon. Second, they are highly intelligent. They have their own language, and keep in mind this is a species of dragon where there are at most 12 adults alive and active across the entire planet in very remote locations in desert regions. So their language is very old and has not much changed from what the proto-dragons would have spoken. Nonetheless, they communicate mostly through arcane writings and telepathy. Their telepathy only works between creatures of very high intelligence, so all the Jacinth dragons have intelligence scores of 18 and higher. A good way to handle playing a creature that is smarter than most people is to give them more creative legendary actions. For example, while casting a spell of up to 3rd level is a good use of one legendary action, another might be triggering a trap that only the dragon knew was already part of the encounter area, like an aha moment. The dragon reveals that it predicted exactly where the player characters would be and set up a series of traps and such in the area long before this combat even started. Another is to roll initiative order each round and have the dragon resolve its actions only at the end of the round, assuming it had the highest initiative, so its actions can actually counter or prevent the actions of the player characters. Like the genius dragon is 2 steps ahead of them at all times. That's entirely optional, of course, but something worth a try at your table. An adult Jacinth dragon has an armor class of 17 and 17 d10 plus 51, or between 68 and 221, with an average of 144 hit points. Its brilliant red and orange gem-like scaled hide lights up like sparkling fire in strong sunlight. Any creature that starts its turn within 30 feet of the active dragon's scintillating hide must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or be blinded until the start of its next turn. Unless surprised, a creature can avert its eyes to avoid the saving throw at the start of its turn. If the creature does so, it can't see the dragon until the start of its next turn, when it can avert its eyes again. If the creature looks at the dragon in the meantime, it must immediately make the save. The Jacinth dragon does still have a weaker kind of draconic, frightful presence, so each creature of the dragon's choice that is within 60 feet of the dragon and aware of it must succeed on a DC 12 wisdom saving throw or become frightened for 1 minute. Save ends and provides immunity to the dragon's fright for 24 hours. The dragon would much rather be further away than 60 feet, but that is pretty good range for the most potent defensive abilities. Not only that, but they have a scalding breath weapon of superheated air that blasts out in a 50-foot cone that is 20 feet wide at its far end. And they also spend a lot of their time studying both arcane and divine magic, so they will have prepared a wide range of rays and orbs, bolts and shields and so on. They do have the ability to blink as per the spell and can cast Dimension Door without needing any special components. They also master quite a few spells of suggestion and charm, which they use in conjunction with their hypnotic hide, as it grants advantage on the spells of suggestion and charm while they are bouncing light off their body and moving around at range, catching their eye of their victims and disabling them one after another with enchantment magic, or simply whittling them down to bloody heaps with barrages of magic missiles. It's highly likely that players will seek cover and get out of the open, where the dragon clearly has quite an advantage, but confined spaces and shadows are what the dragon calls out of sight and out of mind, and the dragon may actually just up and leave combat as soon as it has the upper hand. Bored with the momentary distraction, its dragon urge to hunt and kill, fairly weak to begin with, now satisfied. The dragon will have much better things to do with its time. The situation is not the same if the players actually stumble across its lair of a Jacinth dragon, though. All dragons covet something. Most covet everything. Some desire very specific things, and the Jacinth has a great love of the gemstones that they're named after, plus spell books and religious writings, of course. But any sort of complicated book of information is likely to get their interest. They're highly intelligent. They do live in hot, dry conditions, so they tend to have a very well-preserved library of old books and quite a collection of beautiful Jacinth jewels that are only about the only thing that they'll go out of their way to hunt down and acquire. Jacinth dragons can be found flying very high above their territory, around 20,000 feet, still able to make out the ground below as clear as if we were reading a newspaper. If hunting by air, they use the sun like a weapon, reflecting it off their hide in hypnotic and blinding patterns, then blinking and suddenly attacking from an unexpected direction. Feel free to recharge their blink ability the same way you would roll a d6 to recharge their breath weapon on a roll of 5 or 6. Flight speed is normally 80 feet per round, but they do a lot of swoops and dives that can see them drop altitude really fast, and they rarely attack with claws or bite. Both are +7 to hit, and the bite inflicts 2d10 plus 3 piercing damage. The claws inflict 2d6 plus 3 slashing damage. A tail strike inflicts 2d8 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. Wing attacks only take place on the ground, cost both the dragon's legendary actions for the round, but each creature within 10 feet of the dragon must make a DC 15 dexterity saving throw or take 2d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone, with the dragon taking off in its desired direction, covering 40 feet of distance. It's a good escape move. Jacinth dragons are totally immune to fire damage, so they can survive on the elemental plane of fire as long as they have oxygen to breathe. See, quite a lot of the deep plane of fire has all of its oxygen consumed by the raging inferno. Anyway, the Jacinth dragon has no interest in staying in that place. It's simply too crowded and busy with very fast and boisterous elemental lifeforms. It is a convenient avenue of escape, though. Most creatures simply combust if they try to follow a Jacinth dragon through one of its escape portals, one of which will certainly be located in its lair. They may have to leave behind a small fortune in very flammable books, though. Much like blue dragons, the Jacinths tend to create a layer of artfully melted sand using the heat breath on the sand dunes they burrow through. They do have lair actions. They can create swirling vortices of stinging sand and cause part of the roof to collapse on specific individuals the dragon targets within 120 feet of itself. Dexterity save DC 15 or take 3d6 bludgeoning damage along with being knocked prone and buried. Digging oneself out requires a DC 10 strength check, otherwise the character is restrained and cannot breathe breathe until they're exhumed. Best to keep the DC pretty low. Getting buried alive is no joke. The region surrounding the dragon's lair, out to a distance of up to 5 miles, is generally hotter than the environment normally is, and any creature exposed to the heat without an access to drinkable water must succeed on a constitution saving throw each hour or gain 1 level of exhaustion. The DC is 6 for the first hour, and increases by 1 for each additional hour, so it's a slow burn. Creatures wearing medium or heavy armor or who are clad in heavy clothing that's not desert designed have disadvantage on the saving throw, and creatures with resistance or immunity to fire damage or creatures naturally adapted to hot climates are still susceptible to this effect, and beasts within 1 mile of the dragon's lair feel a strong compulsion to stay the hell away from the area. A creature must make a DC 14 wisdom animal handling check to coerce any beast to within 1 mile of the lair. That includes griffins, pack animals of all kinds. Oh yes, Jacinth dragons can automatically detect any magic cast within their lair as long as it is of the arcane type. Plus, all the regional effects fade away almost immediately when the dragon is killed. You may want to include a blind sight range of 60 feet. This is part of the dragon's ability to burrow and rest just below the surface of the desert, and many slender horns and spines running along the top of the dragon's body are very sensitive to vibrations, and they have excellent hearing. Their skills of perception, deception, persuasion, and stealth should all be at least +8. They cast spells of at least 7th level wizards, and with a spell save of DC 16, +8 to hit with spell attacks, and an arsenal of spells and prepared scrolls if they're within their lair. Jacinth dragons never keep the company of kobolds or other minions. The only companions to be found will be the occasional golem, or perhaps an intelligent magic item that doesn't talk much. If a determined foe actually did manage to kill a Jacinth dragon, the market value of its body is only speculative, as nobody has ever done so before to anyone's knowledge. The hide of a relative of the Jacinth, the pearl dragon, has been sold for at least 60,000 gold coins. The hide of a Jacinth dragon would be worth quite a lot more. Now bear in mind, 60,000 gold coins is enough to buy a caravel fully loaded in good condition, so that's enough to buy a ship of the sea for you. That being said, it's unlikely to ever happen. The lesser gem dragons are seriously elusive and will always know the best time to retreat from a real threat, even if that means they can only take the stash of precious jewels with them as they head to an alternative lair site. So they use divination spells and things like that to see you well before you get there. Coming up next, the coastal dwelling, somewhat nomadic and also exceptionally rare pearl dragons. But for now, my name is AJ Pickett. I make videos about role-playing game lore, particularly monsters and exotic planes of existence. Thank you for joining me, and as always, I'll be back with more for you very soon.